I'm going to talk a little bit about our experiences and what we think could drive could drive passengers to a quicker return to public transport. Some of my thoughts on this subject was when I saw this graph coming out of New York. We do a lot of stuff in New York, both with the MTA, the PATH trains, and also all of the airports in the New York ecosystem of airports. And when I saw these graphs of sort of the drop of traffic, and then fairly quickly after road traffic here, sort of as depicted as bridge and tunnel traffic, coming back to normal, but all of the public transports and especially the sort of the metro networks having a lot harder to bounce back. And my thinking was, of course, that maybe many of these passengers, they would actually prefer using their own car, but had previously been using public transport due to the congestion on the roads. But if we wait sort of for congestion to basically drive or force people back into public transport, I think it's going to take longer than sort of that 1 year that we saw in the previous poll. So yeah, what can we do to make people feel confident and see it as sort of an option far sooner than when we get to sort of a congested situation on the roads. So that was where I started. So when we look at, and here are some considerations, and the first three ones on the top there, that's for the riders, and one of them was sort of, well, is public transport an option? Well, do I even consider it as an option, or do I feel insecure entering? Then next one is, can I plan my journey? I know many of you guys already offer journey planners as part of your tool set to passengers, but and some of them even offer preferences where you can sort of say, I want the fastest ride, or I want the ride with the least transfers between different lines. But maybe this pandemic is also gonna sort of maybe we need to sort of expand on that. Maybe you should be able to also say, I want the least congested route, if that's my preference. So just sort of also to think about that, maybe this will bring on some new preferences when passengers are trying to plan their journey. And then real-time information. We saw a bit on measurements, both from earlier from Madrid, but it is sort of that vital to get sort of up to the second accurate information, and a way to present it to the passengers so that we can guide our passengers. We're basically sort of, because most of you guys, you're running a fairly locked system where what you can change on the day quickly is limited. So actually, maybe one of the easiest things to try and change is the passenger flows, but that demands that you can sort of give them accurate and good information. People are smart, so given the right information, they will make smart decisions. Underneath are then sort of some consideration from you as an operator, and I've already covered some of them, but one that I want to highlight also is that sort of what's the means of communication. We've been working with mobile channels a lot, but driving and getting more users onto your own applications is hard work, and can be done, but you should really consider what are the channels that your passengers are using today, and then try to get your information onto those channels, even if they include external, such as Google Maps or whatever your passengers are using already. So this is sort of a more or less a timeline that we've been working on with some of the companies that we work with, some of the operators. One of them is aggregating historic data, applying machine learning to that historic data to give load profiles also for the future. And that means that sort of you can then also plan a future travel and then see, okay, maybe I can defer the time I leave a little bit. Maybe there's an event going on that causes me not to take the journey I normally take, but choose another route because there's simply less travelers expected that way. In cities where the metro system is well expanded and has many stations and many lines, there's typically more options between A and B, or maybe even sometimes walking a bit longer to then avoid a congested area. And again, giving the power to the passenger in terms of having the information, they will make intelligent decisions, which in turn will help you have less congestion, less crowding in your stations. Outside the station, we believe that sort of we should try and inform already at the entrance to the station, especially in underground station. You're informing them at the entrance is vital. Many stations underground have a mezzanine layer where the ticketing turnstiles are, and when you stop the passenger there, they've actually already entered the station, and they will then sometimes it will be very difficult to get out again. So you need to address that already at the entrance. Optimization of flows on the station. So in peak hours and when the station reaches a certain limit, you can optimize the flows. You can make the station operate more efficiently by then maybe turning entrances that are both entrances and exits into only entrances and others into only exits, and creating one-way flows instead of cross flows underground. That will hugely improve the flow rates underground. It will make passengers have to sometimes walk a little longer to then get to the entrance, but that's far better to have them do that above ground where there's more room instead of having a congested station with cross flows underground. And again, for your alighting passengers, what exit to take, rather than sort of having them to freely choose between all of the exits. You can on digital displays, you can guide them to the exit that is then optimum in terms of your flows on the station. So that's something that we've seen both in airports and in train stations and other sort of also major sports events. If we can control the flows, there's a big benefit to streamlining and one-weighing flows rather than having them bidirectional. So what is it that we can improve by creating a better overview of the current situation? There will always be unplanned issues. We will always have plans that are made and based on normal operations, but operations are not always normal. So a good knowledge about what is going on, and even a few minutes can be vital in the lead time to detect that something is changing. Because in systems that move sometimes millions of passengers, things change very quickly. So being able to detect unplanned issues in real time is vital for solving those issues. Setting up triggers, once you then have the data of all the vital parameters, being able to set up triggers that will then adjust things, alarms, dispatch personnel, or control screens based on these triggers. Automating this will make sort of decisions faster and will make sure that things happen a lot quicker. As I said, direct staff. You can sometimes hold back a train for a few minutes if that will help the situation on the next station. Influence passengers. As I say, passengers are intelligent, so being able to giving them information in hand that they can take action on, our passengers will then make intelligent decisions and try and avoid a situation which is not comfortable to them, and often sort of make it easier for you to improve on the situation. On sort of a longer horizon, all of this data will of course also help you to improve on your stations and your station design on the longer run, because you'll have much better data to enter into flow models, much better knowledge about what the current use is, much better ways to simulate changes. The platform that we use is sense agnostic. We often use technology that's already in place and integrate to that technology. And then if we still have blind angles, we can add sensors, and we have a lot of different types of sensors that we use depending on what the task is. To the right, you can see some of the companies that we work with, and that we're not only train and metro, we are also airports, and we actually also do traffic management. So a very broad understanding of flow management and ways to improve flows and capacity. So what's then the next steps? How do we get started? Well, in our experience, we have to start with sort of honing in on what the most important challenges are. Once we've defined the most important challenges, we will then sort of look at what kind of data will then help you improve on that situation. And after that, we go to the technology. We think that it's very important to make sure that we're addressing the right challenges and that we've spent time discussing what will help us solve that challenge before we then go into the technical library of possibilities. Otherwise, sometimes you're locked into technology, but not sort of providing an answer to the real challenge. Then, of course, real-time and accurate data. We know from some of our operators that sort of data that's even sort of maybe 5 minutes old or so are considered useless for them in making decisions. So once we then know the challenge, discussing what's then the demands on accuracy and real time for it to be useful is important, because of course there's a tie between those parameters and both cost and technology that we choose. And then of course we're happy to just also to share our experience. We're happy to sort of connect different customers for sharing of experience, and then use all of the digital channels to engage with the passengers, to tell them what you do, and to empower them to make the right decisions. That's important. Trust your passengers and give them the best possible tools to make good decisions. That's how you get them back as fast as possible. That was it from me. I hope that was useful, and then I'm of course available later on for questions.
Thanks a lot, Peter. very impressive, especially this use case, which entry to the line I should use, or which station I should use to get the fastest way to the office. It's a question I ask myself every morning here in Paris, and I'm still not sure what the right answer is, and probably it differs each day. So if you've solved that, happy to tell.
Yeah, and what we get today from passengers that we interview is that sort of they use all kinds of, look at Headspace to try and estimate the crowdedness of the trains and if it's running, and then they decide based on that. But once you sort of build that into a model, you could actually automate that for a system to then give recommendations. But you have to really understand the dynamics, and you can only do that by speaking to commuters because they're basically the experts.
Indeed.